Chosen one, awaken. This is not the hour for you to remain silent in the shadows, nor to question why so much seems to stand against you. Hear this truth. Your silence is not failure, and your loneliness is not evidence that you have been abandoned. In fact, it is in the very moments when you feel weakest, when you thought no one would stand by your side, that heaven has already been preparing a plan that no earthly power can stop. Your enemies rejoiced in the thought that you were finished. They assumed your isolation would destroy you, that your silence would prove their false authority, and that no one would ever rise in your defense. But chosen one, listen closely. Even now, in the very moment you felt most forsaken, God has already appointed someone to stand on your behalf. This person did not come because of persuasion, chance, or convenience. They were positioned long before the battle began, set in place by divine providence for such a time as this. When their voice is raised, it is not ordinary defense. It is proof that a verdict has already been rendered in heaven's courts. It is thunder breaking across the skies, a sign that you are not fighting alone. Your silence has not gone unnoticed. Your weakness has not gone unsupported. Heaven itself has spoken, and it has chosen to reveal its voice through one who dares to rise in your defense. So mark this moment well. This is not merely protection. This is a prophetic declaration, a sign that your destiny is shifting into a new season. You are not forsaken, you are not forgotten, and your enemies will soon tremble as they realize that you are guarded by a plan far greater than anything human hands can oppose. Drop your faith declaration below. Write 777. I trust God's plan. I receive this new season. I am not forsaken. Type it boldly, not casually. Let the comments be a river of faith, a witness that the chosen rise and heaven's verdict is final. Chosen one, understand this. The one who rises for you in this moment is not a coincidence. Their courage was not born in the instant they spoke. Long before your enemies set their trap, heaven had already written their role into your story. What you are seeing is not randomness, but providence unfolding. Just as threads are woven into a tapestry long before the final picture is revealed, so too was this defender woven into your life at the exact moment they would be required, as C.S. Lewis reflected in The Problem of Pain. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. This observation reveals that the pains of your isolation and the defender's hidden preparation were not mere suffering, but God's amplified call, rousing both you and your appointed ally from obscurity, transforming personal trials into the precise catalyst for their emergence and your deliverance. Your enemies believed they controlled the stage. They assumed they could write the script of your downfall without interruption, that no voice would dare interrupt their lies. But God had already prepared another voice, one that would rise at the appointed time. Think of Moses, raised in Pharaoh's house, hidden for years, shaped in obscurity, only to appear at the precise moment when Israel's cry reached heaven. His appearance was not late, nor was it random, it was destiny. So too is the one who now stands for you. They were not absent, they were being prepared. And when they step forward, they do not stand as a mere friend or stranger choosing loyalty at random. They stand as a vessel chosen to disrupt falsehood and to check the arrogance of those who sought your destruction. They are proof that your life is guarded by strategies your enemies could never predict. Their very presence declares that you were never meant to fight alone. Chosen one, let this truth anchor you. God positions people not by chance but by purpose. When the time is right, he brings forth the one voice that shifts the entire atmosphere. What your enemies thought was secure has already been undone, because heaven wrote a defender into your story long before the battle ever began. Chosen one, when this defender raised their voice on your behalf, it was more than loyalty or opinion. What you witnessed was heaven's own verdict, echoing through human lips. Long before the confrontation unfolded in public, the judgment had already been settled in the courts of heaven. You were found in the right, and your enemies were exposed as liars. The moment the defenders spoke, it was not just their courage that shook the atmosphere, it was the weight of a divine ruling breaking into the natural world. This is why your enemies faltered. They had rehearsed their accusations, crafted their deception, and trusted in the silence of others to protect them. But when the defenders' words cut through, their lies collapsed instantly. It was not merely logic that dismantled them. It was authority. Just as Nathan once stood before King David declaring, "You are the man." His words pierced the heart not because they were eloquent, but because they carried the authority of God's own decision. In the same way, the voice raised for you did not speak casually. It carried resonance from a higher order. Understand this. What took place was not an accident, nor was it just one person choosing to take your side. It was confirmation that heaven had already spoken first. The physical act of defense was the earthly reflection of a heavenly decree. Your enemies were judged in real time, and the defender was simply the messenger chosen to deliver the ruling. So do not diminish this moment. It is not merely about being defended, it is about being vindicated by divine order. Chosen one, let it strengthen your heart. The outcome was never in question. Heaven had already ruled for you, and now that ruling is breaking forth in front of every witness. Chosen one, never underestimate the weight of a single voice aligned with truth. Your enemies relied on numbers, on noise, and on the silence of those who feared them. They believed that if they shouted long enough, repeated their lies often enough, and stood together in arrogance, no one would dare to challenge them. But heaven does not require a crowd. Destiny does not wait for popular opinion. All it takes is one voice, positioned at the right time, to pierce the darkness and shift the entire atmosphere. That is what you have just witnessed. 1,000 critics could not drown you, yet one defender, with authority and clarity, silenced them all. They did not need to shout. They did not need to match aggression with aggression. Their calm but undeniable authority exposed the weakness of your enemies. One statement, one declaration, was enough to undo years of deception. This is the way heaven works. It is not the multitude that carries the true power, but the alignment of one chosen voice. Think of David before Goliath. An entire army trembled at the giant's threats, silenced by fear. But one shepherd boy, armed with nothing more than faith and a single stone, broke the intimidation of the Philistines. He did not need an army to prove God's faithfulness. He only needed to speak and act with the authority given him. In the same way, the one who defended you shattered the illusion of your enemies. Their power was never real, it only existed because no one had yet confronted it. Let this sink deeply into your heart. You never needed a crowd to validate your truth. Heaven does not measure victory by applause, but by alignment. And when one voice carries heaven's authority, it is enough to dismantle every fortress built against you. Chosen one, your enemies built their confidence on illusions. They strutted with arrogance, speaking as if their words were law, moving as if their power was untouchable. Every smirk, every calculated insult, every attempt to undermine you was designed to project an image of dominance. Yet their so-called authority was never rooted in truth. It was nothing more than smoke and mirrors, sustained only by the silence of others. The moment a defender arose, the facade began to crumble. When truth enters a room, pretense cannot stand. The courage of your defender struck like light breaking through darkness, and suddenly, the stage your enemies built for themselves collapsed beneath them. What they mistook for strength was in fact fear hiding behind bravado. What they called authority was merely insecurity wrapped in intimidation. For too long, they thrived on unchecked deception, but now their performance has been exposed. Before witnesses, the false crown they wore fell to the ground, revealing not rulers but pretenders. This is the pattern seen throughout Scripture. Pharaoh hardened his heart and exalted himself as if he were divine. Yet one display of God's power stripped away the illusion of his supremacy. So it is in your life now. The arrogance that sought to cage you has been shattered under the weight of truth. Your enemies are left scrambling, their masks removed, their confidence shattered. What has happened is not just defense, it is revelation. The world around you can now see that the authority your enemies flaunted was never genuine. Their collapse proves that the throne they claimed was built on lies, and when faced with courage, lies always bow. You need not fight them. Exposure itself is their defeat. Chosen one. What unfolded before your eyes was not simply a defense of your name. It was a test, orchestrated by heaven, for everyone who stood in that room. God allowed this confrontation not only to shield you, but to reveal the hearts of those around you. For in moments of pressure, when truth and deception collide, people are forced to choose. Some will rise with courage, while others retreat into silence, and their true loyalties are laid bare for all to see. The defender who stood for you did not act because it was easy. They knew the cost. They risked ridicule, backlash, and rejection by those who preferred comfort over conviction. To stand boldly in the face of corruption required them to set aside reputation and to choose truth at any cost. This is why their actions carry such weight. It was not shallow support, it was integrity proven under fire. And just as gold is tested in the furnace, so too was their faithfulness revealed in the heat of battle. But notice also those who stayed silent. They had the chance to speak, yet fear closed their mouths. They watched the attack against you, but instead of stepping forward, they hid behind neutrality. Understand this: silence in the presence of injustice is not neutrality, it is complicity. Their inaction revealed their true allegiance, not to you nor to truth, but to their own safety. And now their hesitation is remembered, their betrayal is marked. This moment became a dividing line. The defender's courage drew a boundary in the sand, separating those who value truth from those who bow to fear. It is like when Joshua stood before the people of Israel and declared, "Choose this day whom you will serve." The choice could not be avoided. Their response exposed their hearts. In the same way, this confrontation has revealed the character of every person in your circle. Some are allies proven, others false friends exposed. Chosen one, understand, this test was never only about protecting you, it was about purifying the atmosphere around you. God used this moment to shake what could be shaken, to reveal who truly stands with righteousness, and to remove the shadows of pretense. In the end, you are not only defended, you are surrounded by truth, and truth has drawn out the hidden intentions of every heart. Chosen one, remember this: truth always carries a cost. The one who stood for you did not step forward because it was convenient. They understood from the very beginning that defending you would place them in the crossfire. Their reputation was at stake. Their relationships could be shaken. Their name could be dragged into the very mud your enemies once tried to bury you in. And yet, even with the price laid before them, they chose conviction over convenience, principle over popularity, as C.S. Lewis aptly stated in Mere Christianity. Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point, which means at the point of highest reality. This insight highlights that your defender's act was not isolated bravery, but the embodiment of all virtues converging in a moment of trial, transforming potential loss into a triumphant display of moral integrity that elevates both their sacrifice and your vindication to a realm of eternal significance. This is what separates true courage from empty gestures. Many people will claim loyalty when it costs them nothing. Many will nod in agreement when the room is safe. But the moment risk enters the equation, their allegiance dissolves into silence. The defender, however, was different. They counted the cost and still stepped forward. In that single act, they demonstrated what few are willing to embrace, that truth is worth more than reputation, justice is greater than comfort, and righteousness cannot be bought with the approval of men. Your enemies had built their confidence on the assumption that no one would dare oppose them. They relied on fear, intimidation, and the weight of social pressure to keep others quiet. They thought anyone who spoke against them would surely be crushed. But when the defender stood up, their actions proclaimed a different reality, that some hearts are anchored so deeply in truth that even the threat of rejection cannot silence them. Their courage shattered the illusion of invincibility. Your enemies carried and proved that even one voice, willing to bear the cost, is stronger than a chorus of deceivers hiding in safety. This is not new in the story of God's people. Consider Daniel, who risked the lion's den rather than bow to a king's decree. His faithfulness was not cheap. It was costly. Yet in the very risk, God's glory was revealed, and the schemes of his enemies backfired. In the same way, your defender's willingness to endure criticism has become a weapon in heaven's hand. Their boldness did not just protect you, it exposed the fragility of lies, amplified the weight of truth, and reminded everyone watching that real power belongs to those who refuse to bow to fear. The cost paid by your defender is not wasted. It is a seed sown into your vindication, proof that the Lord surrounds you with those willing to risk for righteousness. Their sacrifice is heaven's testimony that your destiny is safeguarded, not by shallow words, but by truth strong enough to withstand every storm. Chosen one, when the defender stepped into the battle, more was revealed than words of truth. Their courage acted like a piercing light, and in that light, the hidden loyalties of those around you could no longer remain concealed. People who once smiled in your presence, nodded in agreement, or pretended to support you suddenly found themselves unmasked. Their silence was not neutrality, it was betrayal. Their hesitation was not wisdom, it was fear disguised as caution. The moment of defense became the moment of exposure, and every heart in the room was revealed for what it truly was. This is the way of God. When truth arises, it divides. Jesus himself declared, "Whoever is not with me is against me." There is no middle ground in moments of confrontation between righteousness and deceit. So it was here. The courage of one person forced the hidden to surface. Those who harbored envy, resentment, or secret agreement with your enemies could no longer hide behind polite words or false smiles. Their discomfort gave them away. Their refusal to act spoke louder than any words they could have offered. The defender's bold stance drew a line in the sand. On one side stood those who cherished truth, even when it cost them. On the other side stood the cowardly, those who valued image over integrity, safety over justice. And this line was not drawn quietly. It was visible to all. Everyone watching could sense the shift. Those who had pretended to be your allies were exposed, and those who remained silent found their neutrality collapsing under the weight of reality. Chosen one, do not grieve this exposure. It is not a loss, it is a cleansing. God has used this moment to reveal the true landscape around you, to show you who can be trusted and who will falter when the pressure rises. This revelation is a gift, for what is hidden in the dark always carries the power to wound you, but what is brought into the light loses its hold. Better to know the truth now than to be surrounded by false companions in the future. Understand this clearly. The defender did more than shield you. They redrew the map of your relationships. They unveiled the hypocrites, highlighted the faithful, and stripped away the masks of those who secretly wished harm upon you. From this day forward, you walk with greater clarity. You know who stands with you in truth, and you know who cannot be trusted when the stakes are real. Chosen one, when the defender spoke, the atmosphere itself was rewritten. What once felt heavy with intimidation and manipulation suddenly broke open with clarity. The very air changed, because truth has a way of shifting not only hearts but the spiritual climate surrounding them. Until that moment, your enemies thrived in a cloud of lies, using fear and illusion to control the narrative. They carried themselves as if the room belonged to them, as if their authority was unshakable. But when a single voice aligned with heaven cut through, everything changed. Their arrogance no longer held weight. Their intimidation lost its grip, and the false atmosphere collapsed under the weight of truth. This is not a new pattern. Scripture tells us that when Elijah stood on Mount Carmel against hundreds of false prophets, the atmosphere was against him. The people wavered, unsure whom to follow. But when fire fell from heaven and consumed the altar, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Doubt turned to conviction, and fear turned into reverence for the Lord. In the same way, the voice raised in your defense carried more than human logic. It carried a heavenly fire that changed the environment of the battle. Your enemies did not expect this. They believed their performance would go unchallenged, that the atmosphere of dominance they created would hold. But once truth was spoken with authority, their illusions shattered. The weight of deception, once so thick, became transparent. Everyone present could see through the act. Their smirks, once intimidating, looked ridiculous. Their supposed control crumbled, and the air that once suffocated you now breathed with freedom and exposure. Chosen one, take note of this. Battles are not only fought with swords or arguments, but with atmospheres. Whoever controls the atmosphere controls perception, and whoever controls perception influences destiny. But when heaven intervenes, no false atmosphere can stand. Your defender did not merely confront lies, they changed the very battlefield itself. From that moment forward, the ground no longer belonged to your enemies. The atmosphere was saturated with truth, and in that environment, deception could no longer thrive. Understand what this means for you. The battle has already shifted in your favor. Not because you fought with many words, but because heaven altered the air itself. Where once there was fear, now there is faith. Where once there was confusion, now there is clarity. Chosen one, the tide has turned, and the battlefield belongs to truth. Chosen one, the moment your enemies rose against you, they thought they were fighting a single individual. They believed their schemes, their intimidation, and their words could crush you because they assumed you stood alone. But when the defender spoke, the illusion shattered. In that instant, your enemies realized with horror that they were not simply contending with your voice, your presence, or your strength. They had stepped into a battle far greater than they ever imagined. They were now fighting against forces aligned with truth, justice, and heaven's own decree. This is why their confidence faltered so suddenly. Every accusation they hurled was met with resistance beyond what they could measure. Every strategy they devised ran into a wall they could not move. Their power was only effective when no one opposed them. But now, each attempt to harm you triggered consequences they never foresaw. It is as if their arrows turned back upon them the moment they were released. They struck out against you, but the backlash of their own malice became their undoing. Consider how Pharaoh pursued Israel to the Red Sea. To him, it seemed like an easy victory, slaves trapped by water, defenseless, with nowhere to go. But when he stretched out his hand against God's people, he discovered too late that he was not battling mere men and women. He was contending with the living God. His army drowned, not because Israel fought with swords, but because heaven itself intervened. So it is with you now. Your enemies thought they had cornered you, but their arrogance blinded them to the reality that they were fighting against destiny itself. Chosen one, understand this clearly. You are not isolated. You are surrounded by alignments both seen and unseen, by people positioned and angels assigned, by divine strategies your enemies cannot penetrate. Every attack against you becomes a catalyst for their own downfall, because they have miscalculated the power that stands with you. What they thought would be an easy victory has become their greatest mistake. Let this truth anchor you. When your enemies rise against you, they are not just rising against flesh and blood. They are colliding with a divine purpose they cannot overcome. And in that collision they will always fall, while you continue to stand. Chosen one, Your enemies thought they could write the script of your humiliation. They entered the arena confident that their lies would hold, that their sneers would stick, and that their words would make you appear weak and defenseless. Every move they planned was calculated to shame you before witnesses. But the God who sees all turned their schemes against them. The very stage they built for your downfall became the platform for their disgrace. When the defender stood for you, the spotlight shifted. The eyes that were once fixed on you in accusation turned instead toward them in judgment. Suddenly, the crowd that expected to see your defeat witnessed the collapse of your enemy's arrogance. Their words fell flat. Their gestures of superiority now looked hollow, and the same voices that once whispered doubt about you could no longer ignore the truth standing before them. Shame, which they had prepared for you, returned sevenfold upon their own heads. This reversal is the divine pattern of justice. Scripture tells us of Haman, who built gallows for Mordecai in the book of Esther, believing he could silence a righteous man. Yet in the end, it was Haman himself who was hanged upon the very structure he prepared. So it is now. The trap set for you has become their undoing. What was meant to destroy your credibility has exposed theirs. What was meant to bury your name has buried their own. Chosen one, take courage in this. The shame you feared is no longer yours to carry. It has been transferred onto the very ones who sought to destroy you. And because this humiliation happened publicly, it cannot be hidden or explained away. Their downfall is undeniable, and their disgrace is permanent. What was intended for your ruin has become your vindication, and all who witnessed it now know that truth, not deception, has the final word. Chosen one, for so long you carried words that few were willing to believe. You saw patterns others ignored, you warned of dangers others dismissed, and you spoke truth that was often twisted, mocked, or rejected. Your discernment was labeled as exaggeration. Your clarity was treated as paranoia, and in the silence that followed, you questioned yourself, wondering if perhaps your voice had no weight. But heaven never doubted you. And now, through the voice of the defender, the truth you carried has been validated before all. When they stood to speak, they did not bring a new story. They confirmed the very things you had spoken in obscurity. Their authority gave weight to the words you had carried for years, turning whispers into undeniable reality. This is why your enemies trembled, because the narrative they once controlled was shattered not by arguments, but by confirmation. Their lies could not stand against the echo of heaven affirming your voice. This is the way God works. Prophets in Scripture often spoke long before anyone listened. Jeremiah warned of judgment, but his words were scorned until the day calamity proved him right. In the same way, your insights were not weaknesses, nor imagination. They were glimpses of truth seen before others were ready to accept it. Now, the courage of one defender has forced the world to acknowledge what you carried all along. It restores your confidence in the voice within you. You no longer need to doubt your clarity or question your discernment. The validation has come publicly, and no one can erase it. Those who mocked now fall silent, and those who doubted now stand corrected. What was once a lonely burden is now a recognized truth. And that recognition is not just for your sake. It is a testimony that heaven reveals truth early, and those who carry it are vindicated in time. Chosen one, do not mistake what happened for an ordinary act of support. The words spoken in your defense carried a weight beyond human reasoning. They were not simply arguments arranged with skill, nor opinions shared at the right time. They were prophetic words saturated with authority, alignment, and divine timing. In that moment, heaven itself bore witness through a human vessel, and the truth could no longer be denied. This is why your enemies crumbled so quickly. Lies that had been repeated until they sounded like the truth suddenly fell apart. Facades that once seemed solid collapsed under the weight of conviction. When the defender opened their mouth, it was as though a sword of light cut through every veil of deception, leaving nothing but exposed reality. Their words carried a resonance that silenced rebuttals, not because they shouted louder, but because they spoke with destiny's authority. Think of Ezekiel, commanded to prophesy to dry bones. To the natural eye, it was foolishness. Bones could not live. But when he obeyed, the breath of God filled the valley, and what was dead rose to stand as an army. That was not an explanation. It was a proclamation. In the same way, the defender's voice did not merely explain your innocence, it declared your vindication. It was not a negotiation, it was a decree. Chosen one, this moment marks a turning point. The defense was not just protection, it was an unveiling of identity. Those watching now know that you are not weak, not forgotten, not at the mercy of slander. You are aligned with heaven's order, and your life is marked by prophetic covering. What your enemies tried to define has been redefined by a voice they could not silence. Let this strengthen your spirit. When heaven speaks through a defender, it is never temporary. It establishes truth in a way that cannot be reversed. This was not just someone defending you, it was heaven declaring, once and for all, that your destiny cannot be rewritten by lies. Chosen one. The moment one voice rose to defend you, the atmosphere shifted not only around you, but within the hearts of your enemies. What began as a single act of courage ignited a ripple that spread like fire through dry fields. Your enemies, who once stood tall in arrogance, suddenly found themselves uncertain, scanning the room, wondering who else might dare to speak against them. What they had assumed was a safe battleground turned into unstable ground beneath their feet. This is how fear works when exposed to truth. It multiplies quickly. One defender's boldness sent tremors through the ranks of your opposition, and immediately their confidence faltered. They began to second-guess their strategies, their alliances, even their ability to maintain control. Suspicion crept in between them, and the unity they once flaunted fractured under the weight of exposure. The very system they built to trap you has now become a snare for themselves. Scripture shows us this pattern. When Gideon and his small band of men blew their trumpets and broke their jars, the Midianite army turned their swords against each other in panic. They were more numerous, better armed, and outwardly stronger, yet fear unraveled them before the battle had even begun. In the same way, your enemies are discovering that it only takes one act of truth to unravel years of intimidation. Their alliances cannot survive the light, and their schemes cannot withstand the ripple of courage. Chosen one, know this: every time truth arises, fear multiplies in the camp of those who oppose it. They cannot predict who else might rise, who else might speak, or when another blow of exposure will land. And so they live now not in dominance, but in dread. Their fear is the fruit of their own arrogance. What they meant for your downfall has become the source of their trembling. Understand this moment well. It is more than defense, it is destabilization. One act of courage has released a chain reaction they cannot stop, and their fear will only deepen with every step they take against you. Chosen one, the most striking truth about this moment is that you did not have to strive for it. You did not argue your innocence, wrestle to prove your worth, or fight to secure your place. Without lifting a finger, you were elevated. The defender's courage became your vindication, their voice became the vessel that shifted perception, and their presence became the instrument of your rise. What unfolded was not the result of your labor, but the manifestation of divine orchestration. This is the mystery of destiny. God does not always require you to fight with human strength or defend yourself with endless words. Sometimes, the greatest victories are handed to you through the obedience of others who have been positioned for your sake. It is as though heaven whispers, "Be still, and know that I am God." Your silence, far from being weakness, became the canvas on which God displayed his strength. Think of Joseph. He did not plead with Pharaoh to be remembered. He was not striving to escape the prison by his own design. Yet, at the appointed time, God stirred Pharaoh's heart through a dream, and Joseph was summoned, elevated from prisoner to governor in a single day. He did nothing in that moment but stand where he was called, and destiny lifted him higher than years of striving ever could. In the same way, your elevation now proves that your destiny is not sustained by effort alone, but by divine appointment. Chosen one, let this reality anchor your soul. Your worth does not depend on convincing others. Your future is not secured by your arguments, and your rise is not blocked by your enemies' lies. Heaven has already written your story, and when the time is right, it will send the right person, the right voice, and the right act of courage to place you where you belong. You have been lifted without struggle, validated without pleading, and established without compromise. This is not chance, it is confirmation. You are being elevated because God Himself has chosen the time, the means, and the vessel, and no hand raised against you can undo what heaven has already secured. Chosen one, what has unfolded is not just defense, not just protection, but a declaration from heaven itself. Every word spoken, every mask torn away, every ripple of fear released into the camp of your enemies points to one undeniable truth. You are not standing alone. This moment was orchestrated to prove that your destiny is secured beyond human reach, that your story cannot be rewritten by lies, and that the hand of God has already declared your victory. Look at what has happened. Your enemies' schemes collapsed under the weight of truth. Their authority, once flaunted with arrogance, was exposed as nothing more than performance. Their shame became public, their voices lost power, and their confidence dissolved into fear. Meanwhile, you were lifted without a single effort, elevated not by the strength of your own hand, but by the alignment of heaven's timing. This is not survival, it is triumph. This is the pattern of God's justice through every generation. Just as Daniel's vindication came when lions' mouths were shut, just as Esther's courage turned the gallows upon Haman, just as Joseph was raised from the prison to the palace, so too has heaven declared over your life. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises in judgment will be silenced. What you have witnessed is not a momentary rescue, it is a prophetic confirmation that your path is sealed by the Most High. Chosen one, let your heart be steady in this truth. You are not defined by the attacks of your enemies, but by the decree of your God. You are not carried by the applause of men, but by the authority of heaven. This victory is not fragile, it is eternal. The exposure of lies, the collapse of intimidation, and the rise of your vindication are proof that the battle has already been decided in your favor. So stand tall, not in pride, but in holy confidence. Lift your eyes, for your story is unfolding according to a divine script. The world has seen the tables turn, and every force that opposed you has been forced to reckon with the truth. Your destiny marches forward unstoppable. Your voice now carries undeniable weight, and your enemies will forever remember the day they tried to bury you, only to witness your elevation instead. This is the prophetic declaration. You are defended, you are vindicated, you are victorious, and nothing on earth or in hell can reverse it.